In full transparency, this meeting is now being recorded. I'll turn you back over to your normally scheduled hosts.
Outstanding. Thank you, sir. So that's who our instructors are for today. And we want to get to know you guys a little bit too. So we'll just go around through each of our different participants. If you could unmute yourself, just go ahead and introduce who you are, what squadron you're from, and maybe something that you're hoping to take away from today's class that you can implement in your own squadron. That would be great. So starting down our list here, we'll start off with Cadet Major Sholey.
Good morning, everybody. Like Major Gorm said, I am Cadet Major Sholey. I'm serving as the Washington All-Mission Academy Public Affairs Officer. So during today's meeting, I will be taking photos, so make sure you're paying attention because you don't want to go onto the WAMA Instagram and find a picture of yourself looking off in the distance. So I'm here to also learn about leading in a virtual environment, and I'm very excited for this class. And I'll pass it on to the next cadet.
Awesome. So just going down our participants list here, the next person we have is Major Crozier.
Hello, I'm John Crozier. I'm the squadron commander of the Tri-Cities Composite Squadron here in Richland, Washington. And I actually have a cadet here, my son, who's Cadet Senior Master Sergeant Jay Crozier as well. So we're both, we're actually in the car right now, so I apologize for not getting the video on here. But we're just excited to actually get involved with WAMA once more and hope to learn some things about the virtual environment for improvement. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us. Next, we have Cadet Second Lieutenant Druffner.
Hello, everyone. I'm Cadet Second Lieutenant Druffner, and I'm from the Overlake Composite Squadron in Washington. Something I'm hoping to gain from this class is just to learn how to make virtual online classes more entertaining, because that's definitely something that our squadron's been struggling with.
Cadet Captain Ferreira.
Hi, my name is Cadet Captain Ferreira. I'm from Renton Composite Squadron. From today, I'm hoping to learn how to make meetings more interactive, especially online, and make them, like Lieutenant Druffner said, more entertaining.
Very good. Cadet Captain Bailey.
Yeah, I'm Cadet Captain Bailey. I just want to be here to learn what's going on with leading in a virtual world, because everything is so weird right now. And hopefully for the cadet staff seminar next week, this class will also be taught. So if you have time, come. Thank you.
Cadet Chief Master Sergeant Papard.
Hello, I am Chief Master Sergeant Papard, and I am from Tri-Cities Composite Squadron in Eastern Washington, and I'm First Sergeant there. So I'm here, just like everyone else, to learn how to make classes more engaging and entertaining for our squadrons.
Cadet Chief Master Sergeant Amaya.
Hello, I am Cadet Chief Master Sergeant Amaya, and I'm from Dungeness Composite Squadron, and I am mainly here to find out how to make my classes more interactive.
Cadet Senior Master Sergeant Kinsel.
Hello, I'm Cadet Senior Master Sergeant Kinsel from Renton Composite Squadron, and something I hope to learn in this class is how to remain an engaging presenter.
Cadet Chief Master Sergeant Ross.
Hello, I'm Cadet Chief Master Sergeant Ross from the Morristown Composite Squadron in Tennessee, and I'm here because, as a lot of you, our squadron meetings have not been the most interactive and for the cadets because they just don't want to be virtual. So I'm trying to figure out how to get that to where they want to be there.
Cadet Airman First Class Gleave.
Hi, I'm Cadet Airman First Class Gleave. I'm from the Fairchild Composite Squadron, and I want to take away on how to lead better just in the virtual world and part of our in-person meetings.
And Major Hoffer.
Yes, good morning. I'm Major Hoffer. I am from the South Sound Composite Squadron, but I am presently serving as the Wing Diversity Officer. And I came to this class for 2 reasons, because I wanted to, I've been trying to participate in as many activities throughout the wing as possible. And what led me to this particular seminar was that it was led by cadets. And the question that I get most often, how do we engage our cadets during these difficult times? So I will be an active listener and taking lots of notes and sharing this information throughout the wing. Over.
Awesome. So thank you everyone for joining us today. Hope this you're able to learn something from our class today. Colonel Wiggs, if we could get that first poll thrown up there. And this is just to gauge where your squadrons are with their current virtual training. So just go ahead and answer this real quick, and then we'll get started with our lesson today.
All right, it looks like the voting is, well, wait a minute, not quite. All right, looks like we've gotten everybody that's going to vote.
Awesome. Okay, so it's good to see that most squadrons are actually doing virtual meetings. If you haven't moved back to in-person yet, or you're doing some sort of hybrid platform. So this class will hopefully be really helpful for you. And one of the things that we're going to talk about today are different engagement tools, ways that you can keep your students engaged. And one of these tools, if you've ever done it before, is Kahoot. So we're going to actually start off with a quick little Kahoot game just to show you how it works if you haven't used it before. And it's just a little friendly competition, and we can show off some of the things that we're actually able to use. And instead of just talking about it, we're going to start off by having a game at the very start. So if you have not ever played Kahoot before, go ahead and type something in the chat so I can explain how it works. I'm going to host it here, and I'm going to share my screen so you can see the game code. All right. So you should be able to see it on my screen now. Again, if you have not ever played Kahoot before, what you want to do is go to www.kahoot.it, either on your smartphone if you have a different device, or just open it up in a browser window for like Google Chrome or Safari, something like that. Go to kahoot.it, and then when it asks you for what the code is, go ahead and type this in. Just a quick note that you will need to be able to see the screen that I'm currently presenting. This will give you all of the questions, and then all of the answers are going to pop up on the screen that you did, that you just pulled up at kahoot.it. So you'll need access to look at both my screen and the screen that I'm presenting, and your screen as well. And if you have any questions on how to do that, please go ahead and message the chat. All right, and Captain Van Gelder, can you just look to see through our participants list, see if there are any questions in the chat, or if there's anyone else who needs to join? I think I saw we had 10 at max. So if you haven't gotten in already, please go ahead and do so. Are we good, Captain Van Gelder?
I believe that is everyone, sir.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and start. If you're not in, oh, we just lost someone. You could reload back in. If you're not in, that's okay. As the code will still be at the bottom of the screen, so you can still join in as we're going through this. But I'm going to go ahead and start. All right. Now, the first couple of questions, we're going to show off our Kahoot and what it can do. This is a poll question. So you can just go ahead and type in whatever answer. There's no right or wrong. Awesome. Let's see what our answers are. So we've got some very different squadron sizes, down to 10 cadets all the way up to 91. So that's good to see. Next one. Again, these are poll questions, so you can use Kahoots to ask questions and get different audience responses. Pretty good spread of what different people are using. Nice. All right, and our last poll question, you can choose multiple answers here. Nice. All right, so these next series of questions, these are going to be quiz questions. There is a right answer, and so you can use these to be competitive questions if you want to have like a quiz at the end of a lesson, something like that. A note with this on the point system, for questions that are scored, you get scored for points based on how quickly you answer the question. So the faster you answer, the more points you get. And just to note, we are getting a new region commander, but as of today, I just checked e-services and it's still Colonel Stokes. All right, next question. Nice. Most of you have got that one. And here we have a different mix of cadet programs and aerospace questions. You can make a Kahoot with a specific theme, or you can make it general to include a bunch of different topics. Wow, you all got that one. Nice. That might be a little bit more tricky for our cadets coming from outside of the wing. Here you got to type your own answer. Yep. So there were a few correct answers. There was a limit to the number of characters you can type. So if you typed general emergency services, that wasn't all able to fit. Here's a good question. See how many of you were paying attention during our introduction section here. Yes. All right, 5 more questions here. A little bit of a tricky one. That was a little bit of a tricky one. For IACE, International Air Cadet Exchange, you do have to be a cadet captain, and that's an NCSA. Okay, so for our last question here, those were examples of like cap related questions that you could ask. Our last one here, if you want to have like a fun Kahoot game, you could do some fun questions like this. All right, cool. So our podium, our winner for today's game, 3rd place, 2nd Lieutenant Druffner, well done. 2nd place, Cadet Captain Van Gelder. I believe Lieutenant Colonel Maxwell got our 1st place on today's game. So congratulations to all of you guys. Thanks for participating in this game. That's just to show off how Kahoot works and so give you some ideas for ways that you could use it. And now starting in with our actual lesson for today, I'm going to turn it over to Captain Van Gelder, and he's going to talk to you about the importance of effective communication.
All right, thank you, sir. So, as per usual, effective communication is key, and it becomes exponentially more important when you enter the virtual environment. This is because you are no longer able to speak to each other in person, and it limits it limits the communication you are able to do. So what I'm going to talk about here is how to break that and how to unlimit it again. So how to make it easier in the virtual environment. The first way is a way that you should be doing anyway. It's weekly meeting reminders. So with these, you want to be consistent and do it every single week. What my squadron does with these is call outs. Can you raise your hand if you know how to do that? What a call out is? And if you don't know how to do that, if you click participants, then there should be a way to raise your hand. Okay, so what a call out is you're basically going to tell your staff whether you can be at a meeting. That's the basic idea. So what this means for an airman is they're going to be emailed or called by their next in the chain of command, which is usually the element leader. If it's not an element leader, that it's the flight sergeant. So what they are going to receive in this message is going to be what happened at the last meeting, what is happening at the next meeting, and as well as any updates or announcements from the squadron. And so if you do this, everyone is going to know what's going on, and then you will also know how many people are going to be at the next meeting. And what this means for staff, especially cadet commanders, lieutenant, or deputy cadet commanders, is they're going to communicate about anything that they need to communicate. So if they're going to talk about what's happening at the next meeting, they can mention to the first sergeant, hey, you're doing PT, you know, that's a basic example, but you get the idea. So that is key for knowing what's going on. And then next is what our squadron does is we use a Discord and a text group. So text groups are a lot easier for a lot of cadets. So if you use a text group, then it's really easy for people to talk and reply. And again, if you know what Discord is, could you raise your hand, please?
Also, Captain Van Gelder, you got a question in the chat. How early do you do this? I assume that's referring to callouts.
So what our squadron does is we, if I remember correctly, the cadet commander, I don't remember, but the cadets should get back to their staff by Thursday usually, and then it should get back to the cadet commander by Friday. I believe the cadet commander initiates it on Tuesday.
So how many days would that be before the meeting?
That would be 6 days before the meeting.
Okay. So get your final numbers like 3 days before the meeting?
Right. That's usually good. That's just what our squadron does. You can do it differently, but that's how our squadron does. So Discord is similar to a chat group, except instead of just instead of one line of text, you have several different channels in your single group. So it makes it a lot easier to talk about individual topics. For example, in your server, aka group, you can have a channel about emergency services. And here cadets can put in their questions they have about said topic. And then you can also have your character development or your leadership. You can have all these different topics, and then you can have an announcements channel. So it makes it a lot easier to channel the information. And then that will be a good bit of work. You're going to have to talk to other squadrons who have it and see what they do. So if you know anyone who does that, I would talk to them about that. Next is on polling. So you should always know what your cadets are doing or what they want, because I mean, that's the idea of an organization. If you're not fulfilling what the cadets need, then you're not doing your job. So in order to do that, you have to know what they need. So I would say regularly, maybe every 3 months or so, ask them what they're looking for in Civil Air Patrol. All right. I think that finishes my part. So I'll pass it back to you, Major Gorham.
Real quick, does anyone have any questions on the first section that we've had? If you do, go ahead and throw those in the chat and we'll make sure we answer those.
In terms of polling, what would you say would be the best way to poll on the squadron? Like by sending out a Google form or asking people questions during a meeting?
Google Forms usually work fairly well. Obviously, we just did polls, so that's also a really good way to do it. And that could be good for getting cadets to reply, whereas they might not want to if it was a Google form.
All right, thank you, sir.
All right, so now, unless there are any other questions, we're gonna go ahead and move on to weekly meeting structure. So communication is very important. So you communicate with your cadets about what the upcoming meetings are going to be. So how do you make your meetings as effective as possible? The first thing you wanna do is make the best use as possible of your weekly meeting schedule. And I'm just going to show a slide right here as I'm talking. But this outlines the, this slide just real quick goes over the three main meeting platforms that I've seen. There are other ones out there, but each set of meeting platforms offer their advantages and disadvantages. So like with Zoom, one of the things that we can use are the polls. We threw one up at the very start of the meeting, and so we were able to get some quick feedback from people, right? So if your meeting platform features something like that, I know Google Meet is what my squadron currently uses. We have a similar feature that's available within there. Other things that you could use within your meeting platform, like breakout rooms. If you want to do small group discussions, you can throw everyone into a breakout room. And if Colonel Wiggs is available at the moment, we're just going to pull everyone into a different room and then gather back together just to show you how that sort of system works. So Colonel Wiggs, are you able to do that?
Okay, give me a second here.
These would be really good for like small group discussions, maybe on character development night, or if you wanted to sort everyone else out based on flight. So you could have a little bit of flight time and then go back together for your full meeting. If that's available within your meeting platform, that's definitely a good idea.
All right, I've created 3 breakout rooms. It's going to arbitrarily assign you. And here we go.
Awesome. Do I have everyone back now?
Looks like just one person's still in a breakout room.
Okay. But that's just an example of something you can do with Zoom for if you want to do small group discussions.
And the nice thing about what I did as the host and moderator, you can self-select to come out of it, but I also, as you noticed, sent a message to all the chat rooms and then shut it down, and it gives you a timer saying we're going to close here in a few minutes, and then throws everybody back.
Exactly. Other features that you could use within your platform, each platform has a different set of features. For questions, you can use the hand raising feature like we've talked about. Cadets muting or unmuting microphones, cameras, right? All those different things. Just the main thing is research whatever meeting platform that your squadron uses and try and make the most out of what it offers. It might be more than just one giant meeting room. Some of them are free, some of them aren't. You have to get paid upgrades. So just look into what you have available. Maybe if it would work better to switch to a different platform, that's something that you can look into. But again, there's no real right or wrong answer. It's just about what works best for you. And so you can use the most out of what you have available. So that's what I have on meeting platforms. Does anyone have any questions about those real quick? No? All right, cool. Okay, so that's about using the most out of your meeting platform. Next thing is you want to create a monthly schedule or some sort of meeting schedule for your squadron's meetings. And again, I'm going to pull up a resource here. But this is what my squadron currently uses for a meeting schedule. And so what it does is our squadron meets on Thursdays, and this is for the month of October 2020. And there are actually 5 Thursdays in October. So it outlines every single one of these meetings. They can be for a month. You can make it for a quarter. So you have 3 months worth of meetings. I've seen them go out for an entire year, and that's quite a lot to plan. But it helps so that way you outline exactly all of the content that goes on at every single squadron meeting. So if you look at our example, first we have our emergency services night. That's what we do. Each night has a very specific theme. First week is emergency services, second is aerospace, third is character development, fourth is PT. Your squadron can have whatever order that they'd like to do with those, but generally it's good to have each night has a specific focus once a month. So that way you don't have any duplicate training, or you're super focused on aerospace and maybe the cadets aren't getting as much leadership training, something like that. Also, if you have 5th week meetings in a month, you can plan out some fun activities that your squadron can do. For example, my squadron, we played Among Us as just a team building game. So there are plenty of fun activities that you can do for 5th Thursday time. It's a good time for your cadets to bond together, be able to do some fun activities. So those are always really good. But each night has a defined topic, and under those defined topics, however long your meeting is, each block of that time is separated out into a specific topic. So we have a safety briefing at the start of the meeting, maybe that lasts 10 minutes, and who's leading the safety briefing, right? So it lists what classes are going on at each meeting, how long they are, and who's in charge of leading those. And so that allows you to make the most out of your meeting time. Meetings for virtual might not want to go too long, because you might not be able to get very much cadet engagement if you have 2.5-hour long meetings with no breaks in between, right? No one wants to sit in front of a computer for that long. So anywhere between 45 minutes to an hour and a half, it seems to be about a good length. Any shorter, you're not able to provide much training. Any longer, and you start to wear out your cadets. And so you want to make the most out of whatever time that you have allotted. And so just making a meeting schedule for each meeting, it lets people know who's in charge of what during what meeting, how long, and it's a really great way to keep everything organized. So that way your squadron knows what's going on and you're able to make the most out of your meeting time. So if you haven't done that for your squadron already, I would definitely recommend looking into that. You might already be implementing something similar. So just talk to your leadership team about doing that or setting this sort of system up if you haven't already. Okay. Any questions on that? I see a thing in the chat. Does anyone have a longer virtual meeting? So if you could just type in the chat, how long are your squadron's virtual meetings currently? Because mine are an hour and a half, as you were able to see. I've gotten to attend a couple other squadron meetings. Those were a little shorter. Hour and a half. 2 hours. Okay. From an hour to an hour and a half. 30 minutes. And your wing meeting takes an extra hour and a half. Okay, so it seems like the general consensus is it's around an hour and a half, sometimes a little bit less, sometimes a little bit more. So that's definitely good to see. Again, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just whatever works best for your squadron. If you're able to keep engagement for longer, then that's totally fine. Do you share these meeting schedules with just staff or all the cadets? So for our meeting schedules, those are sent out just to the staff, and each week, the specific meeting schedule for that night is sent out a week in advance to all the cadet staff and anyone who's teaching a class. So that way they know what's going on. Class assignments are sent out based on the meeting schedule. But if it works better for your squadron to do it so that everyone gets access to the meeting schedule, that works. My squadron only has it sent out to just staff, just so we don't overwhelm our students with extra information that they're not going to need or be able to use. But it can work either way. That was a good question, though. Any other questions? All right, cool. All right, moving on. Moderation. So we're talking about our weekly meetings, making them effective. Moderation. So sometimes you have cadets that really like to answer a bunch of questions and they'll unmute and they might interrupt your instructors or something like that. Or you might have informal discussions going on in the chat room, things like that. So you just need to find a way to moderate the content that's going on through your squadron's virtual meetings. You ideally want everyone to pay attention. So additional distractions through the chat or people unmuting, that might not be a good idea. If you have repeated incidents with cadets, you can pull them aside, talk to them about it. Or depending on your squadron's virtual meeting platform, if it does become a repeated problem, you can just make it so that cadets don't have the ability to unmute themselves. And so they just have to use the chat to ask questions, things like that. But you just want to set a standard practice of how you're going to moderate your squadron meetings. Similar to that, you want to set a set of expectations for your squadron's virtual meetings. Do you want your cadets having their cameras on? Do you want your cadets in uniform, or are they not going to be in uniform? Is participation mandatory for group discussions? Just set a set of outline some expectations that our cadets should have during their virtual meetings and make sure everyone knows those, right? So at the start of the meeting, you could just say a reminder like, hey, thanks everyone for participating. If we could get everyone to turn on their camera just so we see everyone, and so it's a little bit more personal, that'd be great, right? So just having a clear set of expectations for your cadets can be really helpful so that they know what's going on and so that they can help meet those standards. Again, it's harder to do that virtually. That's something that you already have in person, right? Everyone has to show up with a professional looking uniform, right? And it's harder to enforce that virtually, but just creating those set of expectations can really help. And finally, making your meetings effective. If you have a larger squadron especially, it can be hard to have a discussion with 91 cadets all talking at the same time for like character development. So that can be very difficult. Zoom allows for our breakout rooms, as we saw, so that's a great tool. But what you could do, I saw someone put in the chat that they have a squadron meeting and then they also have a wing meeting too. So that's a smaller meeting group, just so that you're able to catch up with your people, make sure they're doing okay. You can have like a small group discussion, go through some announcements beforehand at like a flight or squadron level, and then get in with a larger group so you have those larger group trainings as well. So cadets, when a large group, are less willing to answer for discussion questions, or it can be dominated by just a few cadets. So getting those smaller meeting groups can really help bring up your cadets' engagement and help them to be able to have any of their questions answered at a smaller level too. So those are just some tips that I have to keep your squadron weekly meetings effective. Do we have any questions on that before we take a short 5-minute break? All right, great. If you do have any questions, just throw those in the chat and I'll be sure to get those answered. If not, we're gonna have our class. We're gonna take a 5-minute break. So come on back at 12:50 and we will continue on, and I'll turn it back over to Cadet Captain Mangeller. So.
All right, I will pause the recording.
Thank you, sir.
All right. So obviously, because a lot of you came for this, this is a pretty important topic for what we're talking about. So the first thing I have on here is the Kahoot. So you all saw what we did earlier. So you most of that was educational, but you can also just have fun Kahoots. For example, a couple months ago, I guess it would have been like 1 month ago, our squadron had a Kahoot where we were trying to guess what the so there were pictures of the senior members when they were teenagers. So we were trying to guess which picture went to which senior member. So that's an example of how you can just make a Kahoot fun rather than educational. But you can also have them educational, and it is a tool to make education more fun. The next thing is have engaging topics. So for example, you can do improv speeches or extemporaneous speeches. So by doing improv speeches, it really gets them to engage in the class. And it's also fairly easy to do. Just give them a topic and then have them give it and then give feedback. So as long as you know how to do that, it's fairly simple class. But then you can also go off of that and do extemporaneous classes. And something that is useful here is the breakout rooms, because then you, rather than having one cadet, then the next, and having to go through 20 cadets, you could do breakout rooms of 5 cadets, for example, and then have them all do their speeches and then bring them back afterward. So that's a really good use of that tool. Another thing you can do is drill. Now, drill is a really hard one to incorporate into the meetings virtually. But one way that you can do it is through drill circles. So if you don't know what a drill circle is, usually at the meetings, you would have the cadets in a circle about 20 feet wide. And there would be one cadet in the middle who is doing the drill. And the cadets in the circle will take turns calling a command. So for example, if I were the person who is doing it, I could say right face, and they would do right face. Then the next person could say left face, right? The thing is, you have to call the command correctly and with proper, you have to call it properly. So you should be sounding off properly. You should be at attention when you call it. And if you don't do one of those things, then you have to go in the middle and you do the drill instead while the rest of the cadets call around. So this gives everyone turns to call the drill and everyone's turns to do the drill. And this is really important because not only does it teach cadets how to do drill, but it also teaches them to call it, which is something that you really have to start getting them even before they're sergeants. And so to do this over video, you could just go through the list of cadets, and as long as you're doing standing movements, you should be fine to have someone stand in front of the camera. Just make sure that beforehand cadets have enough space to do that. So that's just one idea of how you can incorporate drill into virtual meetings, which is something that is really engaging and a lot of cadets are missing in the virtual environment. Next thing is varying your instructors for your classes. So if you just have one instructor for all of your classes, cadets are going to get bored. This is because you need a variation. If there is not variation, then cadets are going to, it's going to get repetitive for the cadets. For example, if I don't like slides, so if I don't use slides, but you have some visual learners, then the cadets are going to get bored because they don't learn very well without slides. So because we have Major Gorham also teaching this class, we have someone who likes slides and someone who doesn't like slides. Therefore, you are getting multiple different types of instruction in the same class, if that makes sense. Another reason is because some instructors know things that other instructors don't. And yeah, so that's the basic idea of that. Challenges and competitions. So it's always important to keep cadets competitive because that it can be a big motivator for a lot of cadets. So one thing you can do is paper airplanes. Really simple, make cadets make paper airplanes and then see how far they can throw them, right? And then you can go off of that maybe into aerospace, right? So that'll keep it really engaging, but also educational at the same time. You can also have drill competitions, maybe have cadets video themselves doing drill or PT competitions. Really what you're gonna need is you're just gonna have to be creative and use a lot of critical thinking in order to think outside the box. Fifth week meetings. So Major Gorham mentioned this earlier. Fifth week meetings for a lot of squadrons means a fun meeting. It doesn't have to have anything to do with Civil Air Patrol whatsoever. I mean, as long as it's appropriate, right? So one example that Major Gorham gave was Among Us. It's a very big game right now and a lot of fun. Another example is Scribble.io, which is basically Pictionary, but online. So you can play with each other online Pictionary. So that's a lot of fun. And then you could also try flight simulators. A lot of cadets have flight simulators. So if you could do that, that would be pretty darn great. And then also you could do movie nights. So streaming services like Disney Plus have it where you can share your screen with other people and it puts a chat on the side. So you can have a movie night virtually. So those are some ideas that you could do on fifth weeks. Then there's general tips for making your classes more engaging. So one tip is slides, and Major Gorham's going to talk about that in a minute. And then you can also put videos in there. For example, I taught a class on command. I don't remember what it was. But basically, I used Star Wars to demonstrate a leadership idea. So by doing that, I made it really engaging, but I also had a demonstration so that the cadets could see what I was talking about, right, like happen right in front of them. Body language is something you can always do over video. So that's part of why having a camera on is really important, is because then you can use body language in order to communicate with the cadets. Because that's something that you can't do over phones or just audio, which is a really important part of communication. My last one is team building exercises. These become extremely difficult over the virtual environment. So I do have a couple that you can do. The first one is, if you've done the Great Start program, you'll know this one. You're supposed to basically take a list of items and then prioritize them to what you would need on the moon. And if you want that specific one, it is in the Learn to Lead Volume 1 activity guide, I believe. But then you could also do some form of telephone and then teach from that why communication is so important. So when it comes to team building exercises, you just have to be creative and find ways to do these that you wouldn't normally be able to do. Now Major Gorham is going to talk about the slides.
Awesome. Okay, so a lot of cadets like to use slides for their presentation. It's great when you have visual learners. Just hearing someone talk isn't necessarily going to help them retain the information the best. So it's great if they have a visual reference that they can see, and it helps them be able to take notes a little bit better maybe, or it helps them just be able to process the information a little bit better. And when making slides, you can make a set of great slides that help your visual learners, that help them be able to learn, or you can make a set of slides that detracts from what you're actually saying, and it makes it so that cadets are getting distracted, or it just really doesn't help to serve your point any better. So I'm going to talk about a way to make some really good slides, and also things to avoid when making your slides, so that way you make them as effective as possible. And to do that, I'm going to show you two different examples. The first one, it's always more fun to start off from the opposite side. So we're going to talk about how to make a not good slideshow presentation. So here is my slide. Let's just think about some things that might be wrong with this. The first thing that jumps out at me is the formatting is all over the place, right? You are looking at this and it's like funny, right? You got some weird text cursive, and the formatting and your bullet points are doing all sorts of different things. You have text all over the place. And so it's kind of hard to read what's actually going on here. You're more focused on the formatting. If you have a lot of really dense text, like you're quoting the entire cadet oath, right? And it's in super small text, nobody's going to be able to like focus in on the screen and be like, huh, what? I can't read that, right? So don't try not to have a bunch of super dense paragraphs and things like that, right? You can use formatting to make stuff stand out, but try to avoid, if you have like a dark sort of background, that black text on the first line, that's kind of hard to read. But the red text with the yellow highlighting, right, that's distracting and obnoxious because it's in your face, right? So maybe try and find some sort of a balance between there. If you have grammatical errors, make sure that you fix those as best as possible. Try not to stick so much wording on there that you can't actually tell what's going on and proceed with your ideas logically, right? So this slide is cluttered. It's got things jumping out at you. It's got things in the background. It's just got so much going on that it's hard to piece together what people should actually be focusing on this. Again, something I can't show you just here with a still slide, but if you're doing like animations between slides, don't do something super distracting that's crazy. Then there's like an explosion as they go into the switching slides. That's distracting and it's not helpful for your lesson. So that's how to not make a good slide. So the next thing, this is what a useful slide would look like. Again, they can take different forms, but this is what I chose. We have a dark background and light text. So there's a big contrast. So the text stands out. It's simple. There's not a whole lot going on. We have our heading and 5 layers of body text, right? You can use formatting to make things stand out, right? Like I underlined main points. So it's your eye jumps to that spot, but it isn't like super distracting. right? So you can use formatting. It's your friend as long as you don't overdo it. You can add pictures and stuff too that helps add to your ideas, right? These cadets are happy that there's a good slide going on. So again, it can be easy to have like distracting if you have like a cartoon up there. Maybe that serves. If you're trying to go for a more humorous presentation, go for it. But if you're trying to do like a serious presentation about national security, maybe a picture of Daffy Duck might not be the best thing to go on there. So you can use graphics to help illustrate your ideas. If you have like charts or graphs or something like that, that'll help your presentation and help your flow of ideas. Great. Those are super helpful to stick on there. And it helps build to your ideas. If you want to use bullet points, do so sparingly. In the last slide, it was like 4 different levels and they didn't really correlate with each other and they were all really weird. With bullet points, if you're going to use them, that's fine. They're a useful tool, but use them sparingly and only do so for like lists or steps, like an order number, like do this first, then this, then this. So it's a tool that you can use, but try not to overdo it. And again, with your text, only put the main stuff on there. Don't put everything that you're going to say. It should only be the main points, because if you're just reading off of your slides, that'll make it so that people are incentivized not to look at your slides and just listen to what you're saying. So put the main points on there and talk and expound on each of those main points. So you're bringing in more information, and limit the slides to only what's most important. You can completely underdo your slides too by only putting like how to make a useful slide on the slide and then nothing else. So do have some of your talking points in there. There's a balance to maintain, but just don't overdo it and make it super complicated. Formatting is your friend, just don't overdo it. That's sort of the main lesson to take away from this. So that is how to make a good slide. Again, comparing this to our previous one, this slide is super crazy. It's got stuff going on everywhere. And then this slide is a lot more useful. Your eyes aren't as appalled by it, and it helps bring out the main points instead of detracting from it and bringing your attention away from what the presenter is actually saying. So that's what I have about creating slides. Do we have any questions on that or things that Cadet Captain Van Gelder talked about? Major Hoffer said, good point to consider if using PowerPoint utilizes the notes option at the bottom of the slide. This allows folks to add entailed information that can be read later, but not to clutter the slide. Absolutely. If you are an instructor and you like using the style of a script where you write out every single word that you're going to say, that's okay. And you can use that for your slides. But make sure that your slides aren't the script, that's off to the side. And you can stick in more information on the bottom as long as it's not over cluttering your slides. That's definitely a great option. So thank you for pointing that out, sir. Do you have any other questions? Does anyone have any examples of good things that their squadron has done to keep cadets engaged that we did not talk about that anyone would like to share?
I tried a really creative idea for PT, and that was virtual volleyball. It sort of worked and it sort of didn't work. You had to call who you were hitting the ball to and whether you volleyed it or whether you spiked it or whatever you were doing. And the next person had to react accordingly. So it was pretty fun for a little bit. At least it was funny.
Nice.
I believe Lieutenant Druffner raised her hand.
Awesome. Yeah, go ahead now.
What our squadron is doing is each time before the general squadron meeting, we have flights split up into their own section. We have Discord VCs where all cadets join, and that's really just a 15-minute opportunity for flight commanders and flight sergeants to really get that one time with their flight and to check in with them, see how their week is going, and that just gives an opportunity for the cadets to kind of understand anything that they're wondering about. and to check in with their staff as well. And then we also have flight debriefs. So right after the meeting, they kind of go over everything that was covered and any last assignments. And we incorporate that in every meeting. That helps keep cadets engaged a bit.
Thank you. Yeah, that brings up a really good point, actually, something that I did not include in our lesson plan. But one thing that my squadron does is after each week meeting, the cadet staff sits down and we talked about how did the meeting go? What were some things that went really well? What were some things that we can improve on for next time? What are some feedback that we can give to each of our presenters? After each cadet gives a presentation, we provide them with feedback afterwards for ways that they can improve. And so just routinely going through and looking for ways that people can improve, getting those smaller meeting groups, providing feedback is really important. So thank you, ma'am, for sharing that. And that's something that you can try with your meetings as well. If you're struggling maybe a little bit, getting some ideas from different people and group input on how you can improve and move forward is definitely very helpful as well.
Another thing that our squadron was doing for recruitment, because they were training new recruits, they were going over the basics of the Chapter 1 test, and we wanted to make sure that they actually knew the material. So we had the Jeopardy class that was outlined in the Great Start Guide, and that got cadets engaged. And we are continuously trying to do things like that, so like trivia classes or Kahoots, and the module activities in the aerospace dimension textbooks, those are also good, and they can be done online as well, like the paper airplane activities that's outlined in the textbooks.
Awesome. Yeah, those are great resources for sure.
Major Gorham and I were in the same squadron, and Major Gorham does a great job putting together our schedule. And one of the things that I really like about how he puts it together is the fact that, number one, he involves the cadets more often than seniors. I've attended several other meetings at other squadrons virtually, and I've noticed that the seniors play a greater role. And I think that involving the cadets, that keeps them engaged, because then they know that, hey, one of these days I'm going to be giving a presentation as well. And then the other thing is, I like how our cadets presentations, they're usually about 10 to 15, maybe 20 minutes each. And I think that's a great way to break things up as well. So you have multiple topics that are very brief. People start to lose interest after about 20 minutes. That's what research has shown. And so having the topics very short, 10 minutes to 20 minutes, has worked out really great for our squadron. And I really enjoy that.
Yes, sir. Thank you. I know this class is running a little bit shorter on time. So do you have any questions for our cadets, our presenters, just for their experience level, things that they've done in CAP before? Maybe if your squadron is encountering a specific problem, maybe that's something you could bring up and get some ideas for here as well. Just now's your time really to just bring up anything that you have that you'd like to share, and we can discuss it and hopefully help you be able to work toward an answer.
Cadet, if I may, this is Major Hoffa. Just a few points. Number one, I am extremely impressed by the level of professionalism that I saw today in today's presentation. I don't know if all of the presenters were from the same squadron. Am I correct or wrong on that? No, you're not? Okay. But you guys did a great job. And the second point is, when, hopefully in a year from now, we're going to be back to what I'm going to call a new normal. But one of the silver linings of going through this tragedy is that we are having a glimpse of what tomorrow looks like. And regardless of when we go back to some form of more physical contact, utilizing technology is a great way of broadening our outreach. And I make this prediction, I could be wrong, but in the future, if not in the wing, but in CAP, you're going to be seeing a lot more of combined physical and virtual courses and classes together, What I mean by that is you might have a meeting, let's say in Tri-Cities, but you might have half the wing attending that meeting virtually. So this is a technology that we are, I won't say the technology is in its infancy because it's been around for a long time, but its utilization, we're just beginning to broach all of the advantages, how we can use it in the best way. And thirdly, I want to say that I have to sit through daily tons and tons of Army briefings, and you could give many a field grade officer and maybe even 1 or 2 general officers a lesson on how to do an effective presentation. So to Colonel Maxwell and Colonel Sid and Major Crozier, your cadets are doing an awesome job, and I'm proud to be part of this wing. So again, this great, awesome job. I took down some notes. As I said in the beginning, I do get questions in the last 4 or 5 months. Hey, how can we improve our trainings? And what I'm gonna do, folks, to put you on the spot is I've written down your names. And I'm gonna be saying these guys are the subject matter experts. Cadet Major Gorham and Cadet Captain Van Gelder, and I'm missing, and also Cadet Captain Ferrer, am I pronouncing your name? Yeah, Ferrer. And if there's anyone else I'm missing, you guys are gonna may get phone calls. You know, Major Hoffa said that you were the expert on this, so be prepared. But awesome, awesome job. And thank you again. I really appreciated this. Over.
Thank you very much, sir. You had some great information there. Definitely, I am willing to help out the wing, however needed. If your squadron would like me to come in and give a presentation like this for your squadron specifically, I can absolutely do that. So if you, yeah, I can put my email in the chat room too. So if you have any personal questions, I'd be more than happy to answer those afterward as well.
I've got all of your names. I know how to find you all. Over.
Major Hoffer, where is your squadron? Because we have a huge group usually from South Sound at our WAMA meetings.
Well, so ma'am, I am actually, as I said, full-time the wing diversity officer.
Right.
I'm just, you know more about than I do, but they decided not to put this staff code as a permanent. Yeah, let's not bore the cadets with all the senior silliness. But anyway, I am not a. I've got my hands full these days between work and wing, so I don't participate with South Sound as much. But I did notice her absence, and I actually emailed our squadron commander to say, where are we? Why aren't we present? So
okay. We're just giving you a bad time because we do get a lot of help from South Sound.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We do. All right. So can you hear me now, since I had glitches earlier? I want to thank our presenters and our participants. Just so those of you that have just joined us on this call, many of our presenters and support staff, as well as many of the attendees, were on the earlier call and will be on the 2 o'clock class as well. So it's a long day for all, but a lot of hard work went into this by the cadets, the presenters, and we've done several dry runs prior to this as well to try and iron it out. So if you have any feedback or suggestions, I sent it out in the chat. Please email me with any suggestions for topics, what we could do differently moving forward. One of our challenges, this platform has taught us, as Colonel Maxwell and I discussed earlier, this is, I believe, a normal WAMA weekend in the real world, in the pre-COVID world. But we would have likely have canceled it due to the snow on the passes and the safety of our vans and van drivers of the participants coming over. So we now have proven we've got a platform that we can continue the WAMA training when we are able to meet in person when the weather or circumstances dictate otherwise. We'd have to work out the bugs on, we're planning to have you physically here and now switch over, but lots of promise for it. Great participation. I have one last poll to throw out there that is a little bit of a feedback. Moving forward, we'll be sending out post session surveys that allow more feedback as opposed to just click a button on what we've thought. So here's the poll that's coming out, and I will share the feedback when we get it. And our cadet staff developed this feedback poll. And if you did enjoy this, please, as we were talking earlier, share with your cohorts and compadres and peers. Sign up moving forward. Good response. It's still clicking. I think we may have. All right, I'm not seeing any movement, so I think we're probably at the end. Let me end the polling and share the results. Nice, nice. All right.
Before everyone logs off, I'd like to ask one thing. Could everybody smile and look at your cameras and then give a thumbs up? It'll be something that I post on the Washington All Mission Academy Instagram account. So give a thumbs up, give a smile. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Okay, thank you all.
All right. Any last call for comments or suggestions? All right. Thanks everyone for being here. I appreciate your engagement and your participation in our now second virtual WAMA class of our season. And I will see many of you
Now.
shortly. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Colonel Maxwell, I have a question.
Go ahead.
It's unrelated to this, but
It's probably going to turn us off, but ask.
oh,
I'll
Go ahead.
is there an update on cadet competition?
No, I'm hoping that they come when they say about the national cadet activities, they'll update about competition at the same time, and then we'll back our wing one up to match, to get into a national
Yes,
rotation.
ma'am. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. See you shortly. Same bat channel.